The next topic, 5 schools of psychology that I want you to think about. Let's get started. Okay, the first one is behavioral or behaviorism. And you should remember that was Watson's school of thought. He says that behavior is determined by learning and the environment. So this is the school of thought that says this is more of the um, environment, learning. You would learn to be this way. Now we're going to go to the next one. This is biological. Uh, these two schools right here could be kind of considered the nature versus nurture controversy, which according to your textbook is the biggest question in psychology, and I would have to agree. How much does the environment impact the way we express behavior, and how much are we just genetically born with? So the biological perspective says that our behavior is heavily influenced by our genes, our hormones, and our brain function. So it emphasizes the role of the brain, genes, and hormones. So this is more of your nature, that you're born a certain way. You're born with specific tendencies. You're born with the ability to achieve certain talents, and that's what biological believes in. This next school of thought is one of my favorites. This is the cognitive school of thought. So whenever you see the word cognitive in psychology, I want you to always think thoughts, 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 thoughts. So cognitive is always emphasizing our thought process. So this school of thought, it doesn't talk about the environment impacted your behavior because it doesn't say that your biology. It's saying it's all about how you're perceiving something or all about how you're thinking about something. So we could all be in the same exact environment, but if we think about something one way, then we're going to have negative feelings. If we think about something in another way, then we have more positive feelings. So this is all how cognitive school of thought focuses on your behavior is determined how you're thinking about something. And if you can think about that for a minute, is if we're all put in the same exact circumstance, some of us may see that circumstance as, hey, this is great. And others of us may see that circumstance as, hey, this is really bad. But the way you're going to feel about that same circumstance is all going to be determined by what you think about it. So here's the definition. It emphasizes mental processes. If we can change the way you think, then we can change your behavior. So there's this great poem that I wanted to share with you. Here you go, that I think sums this school of thought up pretty well. Okay, so here's the poem. The state of mind. If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. If you like to win but think you can't, it's almost a cinch you won't. If you think you'll lose, you're lost, for out in the world we find success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in the state of mind. If you think you're outclassed, you are. You've got to think high to rise. You've got to be sure of yourself before you can win the prize. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or later the man who wins is the man who thinks he can. So that's a great poem. And I'd like you to stop and think for a minute is how many times have you not tried to do something or steered away from something because you thought that you couldn't do it? So this is Psychology 1, and so I'm hoping that a lot of the information that I share with you can inspire you, and I'm hoping that maybe you'll keep this poem somewhere and maybe you'll say, why not? Instead of, oh, why should I try? Believing in yourself and believing in that you can do something allows you to take the action to take the first step forward. So that's a really nice school of thought. Let's go on to the next. Okay, humanistic. I already talked about the humanistic school of thought. It's a beautiful school of thought. This was the school of thought that believes that our behavior, that we have free will. And we're not biologically determined, we're not determined by our environment, our parents don't program us, that We have the ability to create our own lives through our choices. And maybe the reason why we have negative behavior is because we're choosing to allow negative people in our lives, which is causing us to feel bad about ourselves, which is causing us to do this. But they're saying that all of our behavior is a result of the choices that we make. And that this school of thought also believes that each one of us has special gifts that are brought to us. It doesn't really say where they were come from, and that we have a purpose in this life to make a difference, and that we're all kind of connected, and that we need to make a difference with our special gifts. And if we're expressing our special gifts, or at least on our path to expressing our special gifts, that's our path to self-actualization, then we are positive, genuine individuals. But when we're being inauthentic to ourselves, we're trying to live by other people's standards, or we're listening to what other people say, or we're not following our own heart and intuition, that's where we run into problems. So again, I'd like you to stop and think about it. Are you feeling negative? And if you're feeling negative, is it because you're not listening to your own inner voice telling you what's right and what's wrong? So here's this school of thought, emphasizes free will and choice. Humanistic school of thought. Our behavior is the product of our choices. Psychoanalytic. We already went over psychoanalytic as well. This is Freud's school of thought. Psychoanalytic school of thought is also called psychodynamic. I choose psychoanalytic because I can always make the joke of just remember psychoanal is Freud, because when I teach you Freud's theory, we'll see he placed a great emphasis on the anal stage of development, which is when the child is potty training. But here, psychoanalytic, this is the school of thought that focuses on that there's unconscious processes, unconscious needs that may drive us, and that our childhood set up our personality. Okay, emphasizes the role of unconsciousness and childhood experiences. So before I leave this slide, let me just simplify everything for you. Behaviorism says that our behavior is a product of our environment. So let's just take aggression. So if we have somebody who's very aggressive, the behavioral school of thought would say, oh, it's because the environment that they're in supports aggression. They've learned to be aggressive by watching things in their environment, or so on and so forth. The biological school of thought would say no, they were probably born just more aggressive. And since they were born more aggressive, they've chosen environments that are more aggressive because that's what they like. The cognitive school of thought would explain aggression. They would say that the reason why this person is aggressive is because they are interpreting situations as being attacks. So for example, if a person looks at us funny, some of us might be, oh, do I have something on my face? Whereas somebody who interprets it as, oh, this person's challenging me, then they would become more aggressive. It's all about how they're thinking about it. Now then, the humanistic school of thought would say that the person's very aggressive because they have not found their creative expression. And so they're feeling aggressive because they're feeling angry because they can't find their own personal happiness, because they're making choices that aren't going with their internal needs for self-actualization. The psychoanalytic school of thought might say, it might do something like aggression is it's an unconscious process. They've got a large id because we find out that the id is the part of our personality for sex and aggression, and that as children their id was never like really controlled, and so now when they grow up they have a very large id that kind of dominates the whole personality. And so they would be talking about the parental processes that led to this kind of aggressive energy that's displayed by the individual. So it's interesting that you take one behavior, and if you give me any one behavior, I should be able to show you the different perspectives in psychology that might be taken with regard to that behavior. And just most all psychologists will kind of lean a certain way or not. A lot of psychologists will say that they're eclectic, which means that they look at all 5 schools, and that's probably all 5 schools have a part of the puzzle. Bring all 5 parts of the puzzles back. So we'll be revisiting these 5 schools of psychology many times throughout the semester, and like I said, you're going to be asked to analyze yourself according to these 5 schools of psychology as one of the paper. You'll have choices of which paper you want to write, but this would be one of your choices, is to analyze your environment, analyze your biological background, analyze your thought process, analyze the choices that you make on a daily basis, and analyze your childhood to see how is all this impacting me. So maybe some of you would enjoy doing that paper, or if not, then there's other paper choices that you could use. All right, which school of thought do I seem to prefer? So let's do this one. Let's try to figure out which school of thought goes with each of these quotes that you were initially presented with. Okay, number 1, most humans are run by selfish, unconscious urges that they are not even aware of. So, if you chose that one, then you would say it's psychoanalytical. How about this one? Fish don't fly, birds don't swim. A person is born the way he is, and there are boundaries on his abilities. Okay, if you chose that one, then you believe in biological. We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. So the minute that you see thoughts in psychology, you should automatically go ding, 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 ding. Okay, cognitive. Okay, people are the product of the choices that they make. Each of us has the ability to create our own destiny. That's humanistic. And each person comes to this world with the same abilities, then is influenced to be who he is by his environment. Okay, hopefully you know that that's behaviorism. Here, those are the 5 main schools of thought. So this ends this part of the lecture, and your next topic will be next search methods.